All right, hello world. Welcome to your first real coding challenge. There's two things I want to get out of the way before we get going. The first is you should give this an honest attempt before watching this video, right? You don't want to end up in a scenario where you are taking a monkey see, monkey do approach to coding. You want to get stuck. You want to get your hands dirty trying to solve these problems before somebody provides you with the solution. That's the first thing that I want to say. The second thing that I want to say is that what I'm going to show you is not going to be the most efficient way to solve the problem. And it will have flaws. I'll discuss these flaws as we go through them. What we want to do is build our way up to that more efficient and less flawed approach, right? So for instance, if we ask ChatGPT how to solve the problem that's presented in this coding challenge, it will give you the most efficient solution, but it is going to use syntax that we don't currently understand. Right? And that's going to turn this task into more of a mindless copy and paste rather than a problem solving challenge, right? So this is akin to, let's say you're moving to a new area, right? And you want to learn, you're in a new city and you want to learn the area. As crazy as it sounds, I think you should take a more archaic approach, right? Like wandering the streets with the map. Part of learning a city is getting lost and exploring, right? If you ask Google Maps, for instance, how to get from point A to point B, it is going to give you pretty much the most efficient route, but now you're just mindlessly being guided by the robots, right? We're trying to build up our Python skills so that we can guide the robot, not the other way around. All right, so with that out of the way, our task here is we are taking on the role of a data analyst for a digital marketing firm, right? We are going to be engaging with the user. The user is going to provide us with a tweet, and then we are going to analyze that tweet. All right, so that's the scenario, and let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is write some code that allows for us to interact with the user, right? So we're going to use the input function for this. So the input function accepts an argument. The argument that it accepts is whatever prompt we want to display to the user, right? So I'm going to put in the prompt, enter your promotional tweet here. And when we run this, we'll see that our prompt shows up with a dialog box allowing for the user to input something. And what you'll see is that Python will continue to run until we do something with this dialog box and hit enter, right? So as you're working your way through this challenge, if at any point you feel like the program is just not running, it's just you're not producing any output, it might be the case that you never actually finished, like the user never finished their job, right? Which is to input something here. So Python was stuck. This will run and run and run until the user does something. So the user then might input their tweet into this dialog box, right? And we hit enter and we've completed it. The problem with this line of syntax is now that string of text that the user gave us is gone. It didn't store anywhere. We never told Python to reserve a little space in its memory to hold on to that string of text. So what we want to do is create a variable that stores that string of text so that we can manipulate it and analyze it as we move forward in this challenge. So let me go ahead and get rid of my output. We create a variable using that equals assignment, right? So now we've set aside a little piece of memory and we've labeled that piece of memory tweet. And what we're putting inside that piece of memory is whatever the user responds to this input function with, right? So I can then print tweet afterwards. And maybe I'll just say space tweet for analysis, comma, right? So they paste this in and it prints out the tweet for analysis right here. Now, one thing, I'm going to show you a little trick, right? And the purpose of this trick is as we're working through this program, we might be iterating, trying new things, and needing to run it from the very top over and over again. And if that's the scenario, it's pretty annoying to have to constantly copy and paste that string of text into the dialog box as the user. So a little shortcut is to tell Python, hey, when the user gives us nothing, pop in this tweet, right? So we're going to use what's called conditional code. We're creating a conditional statement, an if statement, and we're saying if not tweet, which is a kind of odd way of saying if the tweet variable is empty. So if not tweet, then what we want you to do is put this string of text into tweet, right? So let's say, hypothetically, the user gets this prompt, enter your promotional tweet here, right? And we put nothing in the box. We leave the dialog box completely empty, right? So Python would run this first. The user puts nothing in the box. So tweet is a little piece of memory with nothing inside. Python gets here and it says, if nothing is in the tweet box, right, which is what we just established, then put this inside. Now, if I run this, I'm going to leave the dialog box empty and just hit enter, and it goes right to it pops that string of text. It then executed this. This only executes if tweet's empty, right? So it executed this line of code and put this string in. So the reason why this saves us time is if I have to run this over and over again, I'm testing new things out, I can just keep leaving that empty and run it that quickly, not have to keep finding my string of text, highlighting it, and pasting it in. Okay, so next, let's check our data types, right? Let's do some very basic data analysis. We're going to, we want to find the type of data that we have inside of tweet, right? So we see that it's string data, but what I like to do is save that in a variable in case if I need to call on it later. So data type is equal to whatever's here, and then I'm going to print this in a cleaner method. So I'll do print data type of the tweet, comma, data type, right? And now this looks just a little cleaner, right? So now I see that the tweet is indeed a string variable as we would suspect. Okay, next let's calculate the length of the tweet, right? So we'll use the length function. So it's the same thing as before. Before we use the type function, which returns the data type of whatever we pass into the type function. Here we passed in a string variable, right? And we stored in a variable called data type. Now we're going to do the same thing. We are going to create a new variable. I'll name it tweet length. And inside that variable, I'm going to put in whatever gets returned by the len function, which will be the number of characters in my string of text that's inside of my tweet variable. And then we'll do print the length of the tweet, comma, tweet. And we see that we have 107 characters inside of our string of text. All right, next we're going to create a Boolean variable. A Boolean variable is a variable that returns either true if a condition is true or false if a condition is false, right? So with this Boolean variable, we're first going to give it a name within limit. And we want this to return true if if our tweet is meeting Twitter or X's guidelines for character limits, right? Which I believe is 280 characters. So we need to put in a conditional statement here that says whether or not we our tweet length, which is stored inside this variable called tweet length, right, is less than or equal to 280, right? So if this condition is true, right, if the length of our tweet is less than or equal to 280 characters, then that true will be stored inside the within limit. If it's false, it'll be stored here as well. And then I will print the tweet is within Twitter's character limit. And then comma within limit. All right, and let's put in a colon here, make that look just a little bit nicer. One thing that I want to point out here is I'm using double quotes on the outside, which is important because if I use single quotes, well, this possessive here, this apostrophe here would end the string of text, right? So I'll show you. If I were to change this to single quotes on the outside, that normally works, but it has a flaw. If we have a possessive apostrophe or any other reason for using an apostrophe in our string of text, Python will think that we're ending the string, right? So if we use double quotes, Python continues the string until it sees the double quotes again, and it knows that it's over, right? So then it puts this inside of our string of text. Okay, next, let's go ahead and get rid of the white space in our string, right? The white space can really plague any sort of qualitative data analysis, any sort of analysis of text data, right? So if you take a look at our original string, right, we see that we've got a little space here. So white space refers to spaces. They are often invisible to the human eye, right? So when we're dealing with text data analysis, oftentimes we use the strip function just to make sure that we're trimming off any of those invisible spaces at the beginning or the end of a string of text. So I'm going to create a new variable called cleaned tweet. Inside this variable, I'm going to put the stripped version of our tweet, right? So this is a strip method, right? And again, a method is very similar to a function, except it is tied to a specific data type, in this case, a string variable. All right, and next we'll use the lower method to lowercase our tweet. Lowercase tweet is equal to cleaned tweet.lower. And now let's print both of these. We're going to print the original string of text, and then we're also going to print our cleaned and lowercase tweet so that we can compare and see whether or not these methods actually worked. So print original tweet, comma tweet. So that's stored inside the variable tweet still, and then print. And I'm going to use an escape here to give us a line of space in between our two print commands. So I'll show you what I mean. We'll do n. So we do this /n and cleaned and lowercase tweet, comma, lowercase tweet. All right, so when we run this, right, a few things to look at. First, we see that in our original tweet, if we were to highlight it, we see we've got this invisible white space here at the end. But in our cleaned up tweet, there's no white space, right? The highlighting doesn't continue. And also our cleaned up tweet is all lowercase characters, so we know that both of these methods worked. And this escape here gave us an extra space between our two print commands so that they're not too bunched together, right? I can show you what it looks like if we didn't put that extra space when we were to run this again. It looks just, to me, a little bit cleaner to use this escape and separate this out a bit. Okay, next, let's start extracting some data. So here is where my code that I'm going to show you is a bit inefficient and a bit flawed. And I'll point out exactly the ways that it is not ideal. And in a future video, I will have taught you a few more things, and I'll be able to leverage those new concepts to walk you through a more efficient process to accomplish this task. But for now, we're going to start with the more elementary version. So what we want to do is we want to search through our tweet and extract the hashtag for analysis, right? So to do that, we need to use the find method, and that method is going to accept some arguments. The first argument we want to pass in, it's a required argument. We need to tell Python what it's looking for. So we need to tell it to look for this hashtag symbol. So I am going to create a variable called hashtag start. Inside that variable, I am going to put in what's returned using this find method. Find and tell Python to find this hashtag, right? So what this is doing is it's telling Python to start at the beginning of the text. By default, it'll start at the very beginning of the string, and to start looking through our string until it finds a hashtag. And when it finds that hashtag, store the index, the location of that hashtag, inside of this variable called hashtag start. So if we want to take a look at it, we can do a little print command, start, comma, hashtag start. So we see that our hashtag starts at the 10th index, right? All right. So now we need to let Python know where the hashtag ends, right? So we know that it's going to end at this space. The problem is if we tell Python to look for a space, it's going to return perhaps this space or this space, right? So we need to tell it to search for a space, but not to start until we get to here, right? Which is this 10th character, this 10th index that we stored in our variable hashtag start. So we're going to tell it to start here. We're going to leverage this variable, tell Python to start here and search until it finds a space. And now we know that that's the ending of our hashtag, right? So hashtag end is at tweet find. So first argument is what it's looking for. It's looking for a space, right? Now the next argument that we're passing in is optional, and it's where to start looking, right? So we're telling Python, hey, Python, look for this space, but don't start looking until you get here, which is the 10th index, right? All right. And now we should be able to extract a hashtag. Our hashtag is the sliced tweet beginning at hashtag start and ending at hashtag end. And let's print the hashtag and see how we did. Yeah, it worked. All right, so we told Python to start at the hashtag, right? And search until it finds the space after the hashtag, and then slice this whole tweet from this start point hashtag to this end point. Now remember, when we're slicing string data, it starts at whatever character that we indicated at the start, but it doesn't include the character that we list at the end. So it's, a confusing quirk about Python. So for instance, if I wanted to extract just the word hurry, well, the word hurry is index 0, right? Zero-based indexing, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So if I wanted to pull out this entire word hurry, I would have to do 0 through 5 because it doesn't include, it's exclusive of the ending index, but inclusive of the beginning index. So I could show you what I mean. If I were to, let me comment this out so we don't get too much printed. If I were to print tweet 0 to 5, we see that it pulls just the word hurry out, right? So it includes the starting point, 0, the first index, but it excludes the ending point, which would be this space here. Now, this is relevant to what we're doing because if you look, the start is here, the ending was the space, right? We're including the hashtag, but we're excluding that space. Okay, so now we want to slice our hashtag. To slice our hashtag is pretty straightforward. We are going to create a variable called sliced hashtag, and the instructions are asking us to slice the hashtag such that we are including the entire word flash sale, right? But we're leaving off the hashtag symbol. So then the sliced hashtag is equal to our hashtag variable sliced from the second index, right? So 0 is the first index, 1 is the second index until the end, right? So I'm not putting an ending point, so Python knows, just slice it all the way to the very end of the string, right? Now let's print this. And we see it worked, right? So it started at the second index, right? Which would be the F, and it went until the very end because it didn't see an ending index. All right, now we need to extract the percentage. This is a little more confusing because when we're extracting the percentage, we have to move backwards now, right? So before we were starting at a starting point and crawling forward. Now we're starting at a starting point and moving backwards, which is a little bit more counterintuitive, but I'll show you an easy way to think about this. So let's once again find a starting point. So we need to tell Python to search through our string of text and look for a percentage sign. And we're going to store that in a variable called %start. Right? So that's our starting point, but it doesn't really make sense to start here at the end. So let's go ahead and do -2, right? This is going to tell Python that once it finds this percentage sign to move backwards 2 indexes, and that'll be our starting point. Now, this is flawed, right? Because, for instance, if this were only 3%, right? Well, then it would be capturing a space in a 3, right? It would return 3 as our answer, but including that space is pretty sloppy. And if the company just oddly was giving a 100% discount because it's just a really awesome company like that, then it would return 0, 0, right? Because this would be 1, 0, 0 for 100%. We're crawling backwards too, and we're extracting the 0, 0, and we would have to create a rule in our program that indicated if you have 0, 0 to convert it to 100%. So as I said at the beginning of this video, this is not the best approach. However, it is the approach that's building on concepts that we've been exposed to. And in a later video, after we've learned how to kind of crawl through a string of text in a more sophisticated fashion, I can update this and show you guys how to do that. All right, so we found our starting point right here. And now we don't even really need to put an ending point. I'll show you what I mean. We can extract the percentage already. So if we do discount percentage is equal to, let's go ahead and slice our tweet string, and we're going to start at percent start, and we're going to end at percent start plus 2. We're just going back to our original position, right? So we established that percent start is 2 spaces before the percentage, 1, 2. So percent end is going to be 2 spaces after the start, 1, 2, right? And we can print this to make sure that we did it right. Print discount percentage and discount percentage. And that worked, right? So our discount percentage is 30. And if we wanted to include the percentage symbol with that, we could just change that to a 3. Okay. Next, we need a list of words. That's pretty straightforward. Let's create a variable name to store our list of words. So word list. And we're going to use the split method. And if we put no arguments in the split method, by default, it will take our string of text and split based on spaces, right? So it's trying to extract the words and create a list of words. Now, lists are pretty much the foundation of data science in Python, right? It's like the ultimate building block that we'll be going over in just a few videos from now. And so I want to, word data, come on, word list. I don't know what I was thinking. There we go. So I want to go ahead and expose you to these lists now so that you can kind of see what will be. It's like a little preview for a future video. Okay. And finally, we need to draft up a report. So we have obviously hypothetical data, a number of tweets, a number of retweets, and a number of replies. We want to now, first thing we need to do is calculate the number of engagements we have, right? That's very straightforward. It's going to be engagements is our new variable, is simply tweets plus retweets plus replies. Let's go ahead and print this to make sure it worked right. All right, we have 1,361 engagements. We're doing okay here. So now let's draft up our report. So I'm going to expose you to 2 concepts here. So first, let's create a variable to store our report. Report is equal to, and the first concept I want to expose you to is called F strings. Now, an F string allows for us to have a string of text that retrieves information from within variables and embeds that right to the string. So we indicate to Python that we're using an F string by writing the letter F and then starting a string, right? So you see the F now is in blue. That means Python is correctly interpreting what we're trying to do. That's the first concept I want to show you. The second concept I want to show you is using 3 quotations to indicate to Python that our string is going to span several lines or multiple lines, right? And that'll allow for us to customize our formatting just a little bit. So we are going to go ahead and take advantage of that right away. I'll create a space here and start with the heading of our report, social media campaign report. And then let's make it nice and fancy with these little lines. Copy these because I'll need to do it again. And let's start with the number of tweets. Number of tweets. And I'm going to use squiggly brackets to take advantage of my F string, right? The squiggly brackets are indicating to Python that, hey, this is not part of my string. I'm actually retrieving the information that's stored inside this tweets variable, the 450, right? And what's nice about this is as the data changes, I can update it here and it'll directly feed into my string in my program. All right, next is my number of retweets, squiggly brackets, retweets. and then my number of replies, squiggly bracket, replies, and finally total engagements, squiggly bracket, engagements. And let's paste in the next set of lines. And then we need to close out our triple quotations. Let's see if that worked. Oh, I forgot to print the report. All right, print report. Now let's see if it worked. There it is. Okay, so here's my headline, my heading, social media campaign report, some formatting, and then you can see that the F strings worked, right? The tweets, retweets, replies, and engagements all fed directly in. I can change these numbers at any time, right? I can go ahead and drop them a bit and run this again, and it updated in my string, right? Okay, so that's everything. I hope this video was helpful. If you run into any trouble, definitely feel free reaching out to me for support. And thank you. Have a great day.